Hey ho, it's Thursday, everybody.
It might as well be
Business
Monday the
pants.
way we're acting, though.
No, I'm a little jittery today. It's business pants, business pants, business pants. This is our weekly wash. We're Free Float Media. I'm Damion Rollis. That's Matt Biscardi.
Hey-oh!
Let's get going. Let's get at it.
Wow, I like
Yeah.
this new speed Damian round. It makes
Yeah.
me have to turn the music off too fast, though. I like to
That's
slow
all right.
play it.
I mean, I'm thinking of like maybe Monday we do some banter and then we try to get to it more quickly. I'm just trying to bend to our viewer feedback here. I'm just trying to live and learn.
All right, agenda us then.
All right. Today's our weekly wash, so we're gonna wrap up the big news of the week. We got some viewer mail to deal with in our biz feedback, and then in a new segment, we're gonna go through a big crap load of biz nuggets today. This is what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be doing Thursday, gonna be a biz nugget day, and then in Matt Makes, we're gonna just talk about stuff. All right. We're gonna joke. We're gonna make fun of a list. We're gonna talk about lists.
Yeah, you're making me choose something. This is actually more like
Like
Damian
him.
makes than Matt makes because I don't even know what it is. Let's go into the weekly wash, though.
All right. I just have to find it. All right. Let me get all situated here, all comfortable. In our weekly wash, let's put a wrap on the week's news, shall we, Matt?
Cap me off.
So, the two big stories I think are the trade wars and the leadership turnover at Google, and I'll try to tie them together for you at the end here. So to recap, Big Baby Trump is stirring shit up again. No surprise there. Nobody knows what's going on in China with the trade war, and now he's threatening France, Brazil, and Argentina. So things are going a little nuts. Meanwhile, Google co-founders Page and Brin are stepping down and sort of kind of handing the keys to the bloated empire over to Sundar Pichai, but they're also staying on the board and maintaining total voting control over everything the company does. So a little crazy at Google. But here's the story, and here's why I picked these. Today in the Wall Street Journal, there's a report on how international tax and trade rules cannot address the disruption to national economies that technology giants like Google, Amazon, and Facebook cause. So the Trump administration said on Monday that a French tax on digital services discriminated against the U.S. and then threatened retaliation in the form of tariffs.
Ooh.
But then the next day, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said that he's urging a multilateral deal. So where are we at? Will there be one-on-one battles or international agreements? I think the most important point here is that nobody knows. But here are the two,
We're gonna end the week
things.
that way?
No, but I mean this is important going forward, I think, and this is what I just want to preface this for what we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you two things we do know.
What do we know? I don't know.
Before I take off your muzzle. And these are two things that we have pointed out here in the past, and that is that first of all, the new head of Google has a lot to deal with, right? I mean, there's a lot coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that this Cold War tech fight has created a very unlikely alliance between Trump and big tech, because after all, as Zuck pointed out in front of Congress a couple of months ago, if you go all antitrust on us, China wins, right? So that's the stage I'm setting for you, Matt.
It does feel, not to go all conspiracy theorist, but it does feel like there is this weird xenophobic convergence around China in particular, but really anybody else, where like tech has sort of put itself in a position to say, look, we're the most important thing in the economy, and everybody's stealing our shit, and you need us, US. And like the TikTok story from earlier this week with the kid who sued TikTok because China had his data, and
Right.
it's like
Her data, yeah.
her data. It's like be afraid of China more than you should be afraid of the fact that big tech owns all your data in the first place, and it gets mixed into these trade war. This is the part where I do feel like I'm right out of like deep state conspiracy novel.
Well, and the problem, I think, at least from Trump's perspective, is that it seems like everybody hates big data now, right? It's a great target. So, he doesn't want to align himself with them, but he has to align himself with them because the thing that Trump seems to hate the most is China. So yeah, that's why we have this unlikely alliance, at least at this point. And then, of course, as we pointed out in our pre-production meeting, which none of you heard, is that is that people like Zuck are sort of desperately holding on to this like anti-China thing, right? Like this is the last thing that's going to protect me against all of you,
How much do
right?
you think? But how much do you think? This is why it's conspiracy theorist to me. How much do you think it is like Zuck having secret meetings? I mean, there was the brilliant moment of Zuck having a secret meeting with Trump and then getting asked in an interview
Yeah,
on
60
television
minutes. Hmm.
where like they're like, how, political spending, and Zuck saying, I think it's, you want a full, transparent discourse even if it's lies, and then immediately asked afterwards, well, how about your secret meeting with Trump? And he's like, no, that should stay private. Like,
Yeah,
there is this,
yeah,
how much do we think like these kind of secrety meetings and these kind of like conversations that, like, tech is the biggest lobbyist now in the entire country. They outstrip
right.
everyone else when it comes to
Well, they
lobbying.
should be. Yeah,
How
they have a
much do we
lot
think
to
that
lobby.
that influence is like, when Marco Rubio sends a letter to MSCI about their China index, is it influenced by the fact that tech is basically kind of in there somewhere saying, don't regulate us. You need to watch out for China because they're stealing everything.
Well, notice that and we didn't cover this, and we're going to cover it next week. But actually, MSCI has kind of listened a little bit to Rubio. They've
I know. I
added
saw that.
some extra barriers to entry. So yeah, Zuck is a weird figure, and that's why we love him. I mean, he why first of all, why make the meeting secretive? Why not just like learn to spin it better? And then why go on to 60 minutes where you'll be asked about it and have absolutely nothing to say about it other than like weird red-faced giggles and pauses and stammers and like what is that? Why?
You did look like a drunk Brit. Um,
Eh, Yes, I don't know.
but
So something clearly, we don't know. We don't know if something
But you made a
is.
point. You made a point
Yeah,
in the pre-production that was interesting to me. It's like a fight over who owns the data, because we're okay with the CEO dictator who owns
right,
2 billion
right,
users' data. We're not okay when China owns the data. And in France, part of the spur here is France's position is the people should own the data. Like, people should own their own data, and that's why they're talking about like levying taxes and GDPR, which is this regulation in Europe about privacy and data protection. And you made the point that it's like that's part of this trade war fight now, and I wonder, to segue into the sort of like the next ish story, how much
yeah,
does that influence, like when Sergey Brin and Larry Page
right,
leave, they don't want to be a
right.
part of like this battle anymore.
Uh, yeah, amen to them. Why would they want to be a part of this battle? Although, of course, they're still going to be, as we said, sitting on the board and controlling the vote. So they're going to be part of the
It's
battle.
but they don't have to go to congressional hearings
That's
anymore.
true. That's true. Yeah, I think the thing that gets me always in this, at least in this very area, is that it always smells of people making shit up like constantly, right? Because and this is something I'm kind of, it's nice to have people feeding our bag. All right, here we go.
This is an anonymous question too.
It's anonymous, but it's again verbatim. People, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just gonna read it as is, and our genius Matt Moscardi will take it over from there.
Please.
All I am is a pretty voice. That's all I am. Ready?
Both of those things are not true.
What is the cost of a company when a CEO turns over, and does the stock price change?
Yeah, so this is a really good question because it follows up yesterday. We talked about CEO turnover. Expedia CEO and CFO just left. There's a big shakeup. Residio earlier this week, and no one knows who they are except they make
Whatever that is.
yeah, they make a lot of your thermostats and
Thanks.
that crap. So thank you to them.
Still
And then
Peloton.
obviously Google Alphabet. So the question here is how much does it cost to replace the CEO? Does it affect the stock? But does it affect the stock is really, to me, the question of do investors care? And just for repeat context,
Yeah.
in the last year, there are about 255 new CEOs at publicly traded companies in the U.S. So these are CEOs with less than a year on the job in the U.S. only. It's just a nice sample. And to answer the question, I'll start with how much it costs, and then I'll go into do investors care. There are some factors to consider about how much it costs because these are like, we forget that CEOs are people, but they are. And when
Yeah.
they turn out to be, actually.
They turn out to be okay.
Factors
Everybody
to
dies in the
consider.
end. That's what Matt's saying.
Like factors to consider in cost. And shout out to Jin Shu and Jun Yang. Jin Shu
Yeah.
of Virginia Tech and Jun Yang at Indiana University, who did a fucking fantastic study on signing bonuses and getting CEOs. It covered a lot of ground. But some of the factors to consider are stuff like experience, which is, it's hard to really put a number on, but age, like the average age of these new CEOs is 54 years old. So they actually tend to be youngish compared to
That's youngish.
That is youngish.
Right.
Internal versus external. Are you looking at people internally or externally? In fact,
That's a big deal. Yeah.
External hires cost 31% more. There's a 31% premium and they usually have to pay out
Golden
in cash.
hello. Yeah.
Relocation. There was a study, Equilar actually did a study for the Wall Street Journal. It costs just to relocate, it costs an average $144,000 to relocate a CEO, but like Lending Club had to spend $6.4 million to get two non-CEO executives to move from somewhere to the San Francisco Bay Area because $144,000 is barely a mailbox in San Francisco. And then there's like the cost of the search. The average search actually costs 33% of whatever cash the CEO gets in the first year.
Wow.
And then there's the cost of like the company being a circus. So just some quick stats here, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
The 255 new CEOs cost an estimated $216 million to bring in. Okay? That comes to about $850,000 per CEO hired.
Right.
That's the cost of an upfront signing bonus, plus relocation, plus search charges for these CEOs. This is not the cost of like what they get paid. This is actually the cost of just getting them in the door. And this is an estimate because it's actually really hard to get these numbers at scale anywhere. When we think about how much, so you just spent $850,000, you get your CEO and you're all excited. That cost is not evenly distributed, obviously. I mentioned like the company Circus. Wells Fargo, for instance, looked for a CEO for a super long time because their company has been a shit show for a while, given the accounting
Nobody
scandal.
wants
the job. So when you look at like the company Circus, it actually, estimated cost of getting someone to Wells Fargo was almost $8 million because they're one of the most controversial negative news story companies in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Do investors care? So that's how much it costs, right?
I'll put another minute on the clock for you.
It just won't even take that much. Because the second thing is, after you've spent all this money to get them in, do investors actually care? Does anybody get angry? The fact is, this represents on average 0.03%. That's right. That's 0.03%.
0.03. Okay.
Of of the company's total market cap.
Right.
So it's such a small, insignificant cost based on the size of these companies. But the places where they do care, the big ones, are going to be something like in 1995 when Michael Ovitz gets hired at Disney. And I don't know how many of you remember Michael Ovitz.
It was like a spectacular failure, right?
Spectacular failure. And then they tried to recoup all the signing bonuses and the costs then, only after they fail, right? Like that's
Right.
when investors get all angry. So the fact is, usually investors don't care. In fact, it's a really mixed bag whether or not they care at all. But it is pretty expensive to get a CEO relative to a normal human being.
Yeah, I noticed in an article today about I think it was United Airlines CEO is stepping down, and I did a little digging to see that CEO had only been there for 4 years, but
That's
but nobody even cares. Like there was nowhere in the article, nowhere in any that I looked at, other sources. Nobody cares. It's like it's normal now. So you're right. I mean, I don't know why they don't care. I don't know why this average tenure number is so low, but these are the things that we should be continuing to talk about.
there's sometimes a stock bump. But let's move on because I could
Okay.
spend a long time on this.
All right. Good question, viewer, listener, whatever you are, anonymous. Good question. Good work. Good work, everybody. All right. So this is what we're trying to do, Matt. We're constantly tinkering with our format. I think what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna put all of our fun biz nuggets into a big biz nugget bag, and we're gonna do them at the end of the week. Okay, you all right with that?
I like bags of biz nuggets.
So instead of having this like frenetic part of every show where we kind of go over all these ridiculous headlines, we'll save them for once a week, and we'll see how this works. So this is what your Thursday is going to look like, people. A weekly wash, and then a wonderful big old bag of nuggets. All right.
Nug me.
So I got a bunch of nuggets, people. So I'm warning everyone. I'm warning you, Matt. All right. So
We'll
just
go
let
fast. We'll go fast.
just let me deal. Let me deal. Here we go. I put 7 minutes on the clock, but I'm skeptical. So let's just get at it. Ready?
Go.
And by the way, for next week, can you develop some kind of like music? I need some music for this
Okay.
segment.
Next week.
Some kind of
Well, I'm
high
working with the
tempo.
music department tomorrow. Next week, we
Yeah.
hopefully will have some music.
I want BPM up in the like 160s. Keep it going. All right, here we go. A French fry shortage could be coming after a weak potato harvest. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is estimating that the domestic potato output will drop 6% this year. Are we ready for meat-based vegetables, Matt?
I am sorry. This is a huge deal to me.
Okay.
I saw this story and I freaked out.
You're worried about this.
I am really worried. I have a soft spot for French fries. And also, I think actually prediction fast food markets going to feel a pinch.
All right.
Those 99-cent fries.
Okay.
For all the
right, here we go.
vegans.
Thousands of packages are stolen from doorsteps, particularly during the holiday season. The New York Times reported on Monday that up to 90,000 packages are stolen or lost daily in New York City. 90,000.
Who pays for that?
Here's what the police say we should do. Ready for this? Have your package delivered to your work. Have your package delivered to the home of a friend. Have your package held at your local post office. Take advantage of ship to store option like Amazon Locker. Request that your package has signature confirmation. In other words, don't get your packages delivered to your house.
So
right?
much for one-day shipping.
This is what it's come to, Amazon.
What the hell is the point? We just got one-day shipping and now it's ruined.
I know. Ridiculous. All right. Hedge fund billionaire. I forgot to write his name down. A hedge fund billionaire bought a Palm Beach mansion for $111 million. You got that right. The house has 22 bathrooms, a bowling alley, salon, spa, ice cream stand, and candy parlor, but it doesn't have a roller coaster. So shut up, Elizabeth Warning. Quit whining. Thank you.
How fast before that house is underwater?
Literally or figuratively?
Literally underwater. I just saw like the Key West estimates of they can't save a bunch of the keys.
So no fries and underwater mansions. That's a
Wow.
mess.
The world is terrible.
Meat producers have unleashed, no dog meat, pun intended, a savage marketing campaign that claims plant-based meat alternatives are unhealthy, ultra-processed imitations similar to dog food.
Mm.
One ad posed the question, "What's hiding in your plant-based meat?" Another ad directed readers to take the quiz, veggie burger or dog food. Take that, Impossible Burger.
Wow,
That's
when they
fight.
push back, that's a hard pushback. And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
they're going to lose because
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
have been enough stories about what's hiding in my meat.
Oh, how dare they make fun of Alpo anyway? Screw you.
Yeah,
All right. Ford and McDonald's are teaming up on a sustainability partnership
that makes sense.
in which the automaker will use coffee waste to manufacture car parts like headlamp housings and other components. I'm just thankful, Matt, this isn't going the other way. There's no word yet that McDonald's will be making McNuggets out of broken rearview mirrors. So it's a bit
So
of a
that's a
win.
win. Sustainability for the win.
Repsol says it will be carbon neutral by 2050, becoming the first oil major to take a pledge of this kind. How dare they? It's a bit of a slippery slope, isn't it, Matt?
So, can we just tell people what carbon neutral is?
Yeah, go for it.
So, carbon neutral is essentially the amount of carbon that is spewed from making whatever you're making is offset by the amount of carbon that you save or your energy efficiency so that you net zero carbon to make what you make.
And Business Roundtable, I know you're listening, and I know you have a lot of your members like Exxon and Chevron, but you should be promoting this, right? This is clearly a win for stakeholders.
This is
So get on it.
a win only if people remember in the year that Repsol says they're going to get net zero.
Yeah.
Because
We'll report on it.
it's not so much a thing that when they don't get there.
The FBI is warning US citizens that smart TVs can provide hackers a window into their homes, encouraging owners to stick tape over their smart TV cameras. Yeah, baby, 2019. I pay $1,000 for technology that needs to be immediately ruined with duct tape.
I hope that gets paired with a commercial for Portal from Facebook, which is the eye of Hal watching you all day.
But wait a minute, since somebody's stealing the TV off my doorstep anyway, can't we just wait and see who stole it by spying on them through the camera?
I think they break the TV and use it to make head casings for Ford cars.
At a SoftBank cafe in Tokyo, yes, the same company that just handed a failure $1.7 billion, Pepper the robot will take your order, engage in small talk, and clean up after you.
How quickly until there's a lawsuit from Pepper to the first customer for sexual harassment?
Wait, Pepper's suing the customer?
Pepper sues the customer.
I like it. Big tech is investing in the affordable housing crisis they helped to create. They're all pledging about anywhere from 500 million to 2.5 billion, except of course Amazon is all they're doing is opening a homeless shelter, so that it's not going to cost quite that much. Meanwhile, Adam Newman was paid 1.7 billion for screwing up.
So was Travis Kalanick.
Yeah, it's true. Anything to say about that? Not really. Chinese citizens feel the U.S. had its time, and now it's our time.
That's it. That's the story.
So you hear that, TikTok? You be you. Don't listen to the haters. All right. This is a good one. After Papa John's founder, John Schnatter, said that he thinks Papa John's pizza tastes different after eating more than 40 Papa John's pizzas in 30 days, the current Papa John's CEO says the pizza recipe hasn't changed. So it sounds like Papa John has been butt dialing Domino's by mistake.
Or he could just taste all the spit from the employees that don't like him.
Peloton has responded to criticism over one of its holiday ads, saying it's disappointed in how some have misinterpreted this commercial, but said it has received an outpouring of support from those who understand what we're trying to communicate. In other words, to paraphrase, Peloton is saying, bite me.
It's 6 venture capitalists saying, we've invested $1 billion. We still love you.
All right. Zuck and his wife still on the news. Zuck and their $74 billion are giving parenting advice. All right. This is
Mm.
parenting advice for billionaires. First of all, they say that they could buy their two daughters almost anything, but they don't. That's great parenting, right, Matt? And when they say almost anything, I think they realize the one thing they can't buy for their children is normal parents. Zuck also said his daughters, who are ages 2 and 4, have chores, right?
How?
So he shared a video on Facebook of them loading a dishwasher. So, yeah, handling knives. That's decent parenting.
Sergey Brin and Larry Page haven't given interviews in like 5 years. Zuck's just got to take a page out of
Yeah.
that.
They also said they take their kids to work and that work comes home too. So, in other words, your parents are crazy. So, yeah, they must be good parents. I don't know what's going on there.
I
I don't
think
know what's going on in that household. It's
this
too
is like
much.
a middle class narrative, is what they're going for. We're
In
just your
other,
average billionaire. Just relax.
yeah, in other related Facebook news, Instagram will begin to require birthdays from all new users. The policy should be a boon to targeted advertising, despite Instagram saying advertisers have nothing to do with this. The policy change could also help stave off passage of costly child safety and data privacy regulation. So here's the genius punchline, Matt. Instagram will not verify the birth dates.
I was born in 1917, according to my Instagram account.
So yeah, pretty Facebooky, huh? Just making shit up as they go, just making shit up. All right. Apple admits
Oh,
the
side note,
iPhone.
owned by
Yeah,
Facebook. So
yeah, exactly. Apple admits the iPhone 11 Pro still collects location data even when you tell it not to.
so I'm holding my iPhone right
Yeah.
now. Thank you for knowing that I'm sitting in a decrepit little office in
Yeah,
my
and
house.
stop bullying your phone in the first place. And the story I already mentioned, Alibaba-backed startup AutoX has applied to test self-driving vehicles without an in-car backup driver in California. So let's keep being afraid of TikTok. Boeing's chief engineer, John Hamilton, who was leading the response to the 737 MAX crisis, who testified alongside with CEO Dennis. He's gone. He's leaving the company, but Dennis still has a job. So nothing to see here, people. Nothing to see
I
here.
wonder what his golden parachute was.
Well, yeah. I mean, thank God he had a parachute. That
Oh,
was a weird
zing.
737 Max joke. Yeah.
Terrible
Yeah.
puns. Thanks for
Mark
business pantsing.
Wiseman, global head of active equities at BlackRock, and one of several people tipped as CEO Larry Fink's possible successors, is leaving the firm following an alleged violation of the company's relationship at work policy.
Ooh.
Wiseman is the second executive to leave BlackRock this year due to personal conduct after its head of human resources was fired for failing to adhere to company policy. So that's a pretty big symbol there. Here's what BlackRock had to say in our ironic BS apology of the week. This is not who BlackRock is. This is not our culture.
So,
All right.
was that issued by the head of HR? Or
Yeah. That's a good way to cover up their stinking culture by saying it's not their culture. Finally, as part of its long-standing commitment to misclassifying drivers, Uber has, in at least one office, created separate bathrooms for drivers and employees. This is in your neck of the woods in Providence, Rhode Island.
oh,
But it, but
PVD.
but at least the Uber spokesperson responded pretty honestly to this by saying this was a mistake and we regret it. We are removing the signs and have made it clear that this was not appropriate.
So that was a lot of biz nuggets. I know we're out of time on biz nuggets, but I have one question for you about all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Which company that you mentioned would you invest in?
I gotta go Alibaba.
Alibaba,
We're
I think, is
slipping
the
in.
winner. Alibaba
Yeah,
stands head and shoulders.
yeah.
Let's make me
Whew.
make something.
All right. I'm exhausted. All right. This is what we're gonna do this week because Matt already eloquently spent his research brain on answering a viewer question. So I got 3 lists for you, Matt. All right. So
I
you
will make
pick
a choice.
Yeah, you pick the list you want to talk about, and we'll go out on a high. We'll go out on. We're gonna talk about a list, and then we're gonna end the show. So I have 3 lists. Ready? The top 10 college majors American students regret the most. Okay.
Ooh, good list.
Holiday etiquette. The top 10 rules for gift giving this holiday season.
Hmm.
Okay. And then the 12 themes experts predict will shape the world in 50 years. So what do you say, Matt?
So I can just guess what the 12 themes are. They are going to be like
Alligators.
AI, automation,
That's
climate
true.
change.
Probably true.
Then there's going to be like trade. It's going to be like all boring stuff.
Okay. Okay.
I can guess holiday etiquette. Don't talk about, don't give politically charged things. Don't give, your atheist cousin a crucifix. Like
All right.
whatever, I think the best one is the college regret.
All right. Let's get at it.
It's like the postgraduate walk of shame. It's fantastic.
And I'm not, and I'm going to say that you're not completely right about the other two. So how dare you? All right, let's
Well,
get at it.
I like the idea of a list of human capital woes.
The top 10 most regretted college majors. We actually have the list of the least regretted college majors, but that seems less sexy. So let's go to the top 10 most regretted college majors. You ready? I'm going to go.
So you wake up after you've thrown your hat into the air and
Yeah,
say, "What the fuck did I just do?"
and I'll give you, and I can give you a leading reason for the regret too. Here we go. We'll start with the 10th. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up. So the at 21% regret getting a degree in architecture.
Really?
Yeah. One of the reasons is skill obsolescence due to tech.
Is that just the reason for everything now?
It's for architecture. The next one at 24% is agriculture and natural resources,
Yeah, well, that one makes sense.
limited job opportunities.
Yeah, well, no.
Next, philosophy, religion, theology. Oh, this is a good reason why this is regretted. Skills not valued in the workplace. uh, uh, yeah, that says a lot. 25% visual performing arts. That's too bad. I guess because it's a stressful industry, limited job opportunities.
Well, that one
Yeah,
actually does not have the tech will displace us as a problem.
that's true. It's creativity. Although Pepper the robot is coming for
And
you.
can I say though that like I was looking at for a Matt Makes, I don't know if I'll
Hmm.
ever do, but 73% of Netflix value is actually intangible assets, meaning like patents, content that they own
Okay.
that isn't like you'd have to like sell IP basically in order to turn that into money. So it's like
Right.
intangibles is like this stuff that is literally not tangible that they say has value and they estimate the value of it. It seems like performing arts is effectively going to be really useful when it
Yeah.
comes to an increasingly intangible world.
To sum up, I think Matt is saying apply to Netflix, you complainers.
What are you doing?
Next, ethnic area multidisciplinary studies. That's next. That I don't know what to say about that. I don't even know what that is. Number 5, communications.
Okay, I disagree with that.
Right? I mean, we're in the world of narrative risk, so I mean, we need those communications
We
majors.
really do. It's corporate style communication that's going to get outmoded. There's actually a need more to be able to communicate well than ever before.
Here's how you communicate well, corporations. Stop tweeting shit. Next, social sciences and law.
Yeah, lawyers all hate themselves though. I literally have never met a lawyer who came out of law school
Really?
and was like, I was glad I did that.
Probably because there are too many law students and not enough jobs. Is that it?
No, they realize that law kind of sucks to do.
Okay, wow, that's hard hitting punditry there from Matt Muscardi. Next, and this one's sad. Actually, the top 3 are all kind of depressing, but
Oh, good. We're going out on a high.
number 3 is education.
Education.
Yeah, low pay.
The minute we shift the public priorities in this country,
Yeah.
that will not be a regret.
Well, yeah. Well, we're not gonna. Yeah.
So
You think
never.
we're getting?
It will
You think we're
always be
getting?
a
Yeah, I was gonna
regret.
say when in 2050 when Rest Ball is scrubbing oil off of seals' ears. I mean, when is that gonna happen? Number two. This one's equally depressing. 35% regret getting majoring in the sciences. How is that possible?
That's just that. Well, think about it. Science has been under attack more than anything.
That's
Like
crazy.
people just like they believe what they want to believe in little bubbles, right? Thank you, Zuckerberg, for creating bubbles that are so large that we can ignore science. But
I like.
but that it is depressing. You spent your
Yeah.
life like learning a method of truth, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, we hate you elitists and you have an agenda.
And finally, 42% of survey respondents regret their major in English and foreign languages.
If you are an English major,
Yeah.
please apply to Free Float Media.
Yeah.
We are not hiring, but we
Oh.
want your applications.
Yeah. Well, you said yesterday that didn't you say that writing skills is the biggest thing?
It was the biggest thing I needed when I was working as an analyst, like a legit analyst in a financial firm, and all I wanted was writing skills because no one can write.
Right. And of course from the American perspective, foreign language skills, what the hell is that?
I mean, forget it.
Who needs it? All right. I think we did all right. We
This
got
was
through it.
Business Pants. That was
I'm
a
sweaty.
mouthful of Biz Nugget
Yeah.
Pants.
Whew. I'm exhausted.
Please, pretty please, subscribe, rate us, watch us. We are live Monday through Thursday on YouTube and Twitter and Periscope, and we're in South Korea. We're everywhere,
Yeah.
man. We are
Canada.
global.
Canada.
Business Pants
Yeah.
is global. You can get us on iTunes, Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, Owlcast, everywhere you get podcasts. We are there too. Subscribe. Please, pretty please send us your feedback. Give us 5 stars.
It all helps.
Give us your questions. We want to keep doing this, and we like talking to you to do it. Thanks, Damion.
Later on, Matt. See you Monday.
I'll see you on Monday.